Hello, esteemed gentlemen. The wolf does not concern himself with the opinions of sheep. They say society rewards those who fit in, but what happens when you refuse to play by its rules? When you walk alone, mind your own business, and don't seek validation from anyone? Simple. They hate you for it. Here's a brutal fact. The average person spends over 2 hours a day scrolling social media, obsessing over what others think. Meanwhile, you're out here unbothered, focused, and moving in silence. And that's a problem. People don't actually want you to be independent. They want you to pretend to be. They want you to act like you don't care while still secretly craving their approval, just like they do. But when you truly don't need them, when you genuinely mind your own business and build your own path, it doesn't make sense to them. And when people don't understand you, they fear you. And when they fear you, they turn to the one thing they do best: hate. Welcome to the world of the Sigma male, where your greatest strength is also the reason they can't stand you. Number 1, your success is a result of strategy, not noise. Most people believe success comes from being the loudest in the room, networking, self-promotion, and constantly reminding the world of their existence. They assume that without noise you can't win. But you know better. You move differently. While others waste time broadcasting their every move, you focus on strategy. You don't announce what you're building. You don't seek validation. You don't waste energy proving yourself. Instead, you execute. You calculate. You let results speak for themselves, and that's exactly why they hate you. People are uncomfortable with what they can't explain. They see you winning but can't figure out how. You didn't play their game. You didn't kiss up to anyone. You didn't perform for attention. So they convince themselves you must have cheated or gotten lucky, because the alternative, that their entire approach is flawed, is too much for their ego to handle. There's a reason history remembers the quiet builders more than the loud talkers, the ones who didn't waste time trying to impress anyone but instead let their work do all the talking. You understand this. You know that real power comes from control. Control over your time, your energy, and most importantly, your emotions. And that's what truly sets you apart. They fight for visibility. You fight for mastery. They obsess over opinions. You obsess over results. They scream for attention. You remain silent and still win. And nothing, absolutely nothing, makes people angrier than someone who doesn't need applause to dominate. Number 2, people hate what they can't predict. Most people rely on patterns to navigate social interactions. They expect people to behave in predictable ways, follow trends, seek approval, conform to expectations. It makes life easier for them because when they can categorize you, they feel like they have control. But then there's you. You don't fit into their neat little boxes. You don't give them the usual social cues to work with, and that unsettles them. You don't react the way they expect. You don't play along with their games. You don't seek validation or follow trends just to fit in. This makes people nervous because they don't know how to handle someone they can't read. They can't predict your next move, and that frustrates them. Think about it. Most people rely on being able to manipulate others in subtle ways. They expect reactions when they show off, when they gossip, when they try to impress. But when you stay indifferent, unbothered, and unmoved by the usual tactics, they don't know what to do with you. It's easier for people to deal with someone who is clearly above or below them in the social hierarchy. But when you step outside of that entirely, they feel powerless. They can't compete with you because you're not playing the same game. They can't control you because you don't respond like everyone else. And that's why they hate you. You remind them of how little power they actually have. Number 3, you can walk away from anything, and that's real power. Most people are trapped by their jobs, their relationships, their social circles, their own need for approval. They stay in situations they hate because they believe they have no other choice. They tolerate toxic bosses, fake friends, and unfulfilling lives because they're terrified of the unknown. But you don't have that fear. You can walk away from anything at any time, and that makes people uncomfortable. Your ability to leave isn't just about money or resources. It's about mindset. You don't cling to things out of desperation. You don't stay in places that drain you just because it's what you're supposed to do. You understand that attachment to the wrong things is the fastest way to lose yourself. And because you refuse to be trapped, you can't be controlled. People resent this because deep down, they wish they had that same power. They envy your ability to make decisions without fear. They hate that you don't need their validation to feel secure. They can't understand how you operate without the invisible chains that keep them stuck. So they try to label you cold, distant, arrogant. But the truth is, they just don't like being reminded that they could walk away too, if only they had the courage. And that's the real reason they hate you. Because you prove that freedom isn't about luck or privilege, it's about choice, and they're too afraid to make it. Number 4, your lack of envy is infuriating. Most people live their lives in a constant state of comparison. They measure their worth by how they stack up against others, who has the better job, the nicer car, the bigger house. Their self-esteem isn't built on personal fulfillment, but on being better than someone else. But you don't play that game. You don't look at what others have and feel the need to compete. And that drives them insane. When someone brags about their new promotion, their expensive vacation, or their social status, they expect a reaction. Jealousy, admiration, or at least some kind of acknowledgement. But when you remain completely unbothered, it throws them off. It makes them question if what they're chasing even matters. Because if you don't care, then maybe, just maybe, none of it actually means anything. That's the part they can't stand. Your lack of envy forces them to confront the fact that their entire sense of self-worth is built on comparison. They can't understand how you're satisfied without constantly competing. They don't get why you're not trying to prove anything. And because they can't rattle you, they feel powerless. It's not that you think you're above them, you just don't need to measure yourself against them. Your confidence doesn't come from being better than anyone. It comes from knowing you're enough as you are. And nothing frustrates a competitive, insecure person more than someone who refuses to compete at all. Number 5, you can't be controlled. Control is the foundation of most social interactions. People expect others to respond to pressure, approval, or rejection. They assume that if they dangle validation in front of you, you'll chase it. If they withdraw it, you'll crave it. This is how they manipulate most people, through the fear of being disliked, excluded, or judged. But when it comes to you, none of that works. You don't need their approval. You don't crave their recognition. You don't depend on their acceptance to feel whole. And that makes you impossible to control. People who are used to pulling the strings, whether it's bosses, friends, or even family, become frustrated when they realize you're not dancing to their tune. They can't use guilt, flattery, or peer pressure to steer you in their direction. This threatens those who rely on control to maintain their status. They hate that you operate outside their influence. They can't manipulate you into unnecessary competition, fake friendships, or pointless power struggles. No matter what they do, they can't get a reaction out of you. And that infuriates them. It's not just that you refuse to be controlled, it's that you don't even acknowledge the control they think they have. You move on your own terms, making decisions based on logic and self-respect, not on what others expect. And in a world where most people are desperate to fit in, nothing is more disruptive than someone who truly doesn't need to. Number 6. You're the living proof that their priorities are a lie. Most people spend their lives chasing illusions. They believe that status, approval, and social validation will bring them happiness. They jump through hoops, play office politics, and shape their personalities around what they think will make them more likable, respected, or envied. They tell themselves this is the path to success. But then they see you. And suddenly, that illusion starts to crack. You don't play the game. You don't waste energy proving yourself to people who don't matter. You don't chase promotions just for a title or fake relationships just to feel important. Yet despite ignoring everything they've been conditioned to believe is necessary, you're still thriving, you're content, you're in control of your own life. And that messes with their heads. Your existence forces people to confront a painful truth. They've been fooled. They've spent years investing in a system that never truly cared about them. They've traded freedom for approval, peace for validation, and authenticity for social acceptance. Seeing you succeed without following their script makes them question if they've wasted their time. And instead of admitting they might have, they do the easier thing, resent you for exposing it. It's not that you attack their way of life, you don't even acknowledge it. And that's what makes it worse. You move in silence, proving by example that everything they believed was necessary wasn't. That's why they hate you, because deep down, they're afraid you might be right. Number 7, you kill the excuse of "I have no choice." Most people cling to the belief that they have to do things they hate. They tell themselves they have no choice but to stay in dead-end jobs, toxic relationships, and meaningless social circles because that's just how life works. It's their safety net, their way of avoiding responsibility for their own unhappiness. But then they see you, and their excuse crumbles. You don't follow the script, you don't conform just because it's expected. You don't stay trapped in situations that drain you. You've proven through action that a different path exists, one where you make choices based on your own values, not society's demands. And that makes people uncomfortable because if you can do it, that means they could too. But admitting that would mean acknowledging the real reason they stay stuck. Fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of failure. Fear of judgment. It's easier for them to believe they have no choice than to admit they're too afraid to make one. That's why they resent you. You don't just live differently. You expose the fact that they had options all along. You are walking proof that no one is forced to live by society's expectations. And rather than face that truth, they attack you instead. Because it's easier to hate the person who breaks the illusion than to admit they've been lying to themselves the entire time. Number 8, people see their own weaknesses in you. Most people rely on constant external validation to feel secure. They need a group, a status, or a role to define them. They keep themselves distracted with noise, social media, gossip, meaningless relationships, because silence forces them to face their biggest fears: loneliness, failure, and insecurity. But then they see you, completely self-sufficient, moving through life without needing approval or a crowd. And suddenly they're forced to confront something they've been avoiding: themselves. Your ability to be alone without being lonely makes them question why they can't do the same. Your confidence in walking your own path highlights their own doubts about the one they've chosen. Your lack of desperation for attention reminds them how much they crave it. Instead of dealing with these uncomfortable realizations, they project their frustration onto you. They call you distant, antisocial, or even arrogant, not because you actually are, but because it's easier to attack you than to admit their own weaknesses. They hate that your existence challenges the idea that they need constant validation to be happy. You prove that real strength comes from within, not from a group or a title, and that's what truly disturbs them. You are a mirror they don't want to look into, a reminder that their fears are self-imposed, that their insecurities come from within, and that the only thing stopping them from being as free as you is themselves. Number 9, you disrupt the attention economy. Modern society thrives on one thing: attention. Social media, marketing, entertainment, all of it is designed to keep people addicted to external validation. Companies make billions by feeding off insecurity, convincing people they need more likes, more views, more recognition to matter. Most people willingly play along, chasing digital approval like their lives depend on it. But then there's you, unbothered, uninterested, unmoved. You don't seek attention, and that makes you dangerous. Your indifference disrupts the entire system. You're proof that a person can exist, succeed, and be completely content without constantly performing for the world. You don't measure your worth in followers. You don't need applause to feel validated. You don't jump on every trend just to stay relevant. And that, to an industry designed to exploit human desperation, is a massive problem. People who crave attention don't understand you. They can't figure out why you're not playing the game, why you're not chasing the same meaningless highs they are. Your ability to remain detached from it all makes them question why they're so obsessed with being seen in the first place. And instead of facing that uncomfortable truth, they resent you for exposing it. You're a glitch in the system. A reminder that real value isn't determined by visibility, that true confidence doesn't need an audience, and that the world's obsession with attention is nothing more than a well-marketed illusion. And those who profit from keeping people addicted to it, they hate that you see right through it. Number 10. You're not here to entertain or be entertained. In a world full of distractions, mindless entertainment, shallow conversations, and endless noise, it's easy for people to get caught up in the circus. Most are chasing the next thrill, the next meme, the next party or distraction to fill the void. It's a constant cycle of fleeting highs and low-quality interactions. But you've opted out of that game. You're not here to entertain, and you're not here to be entertained. You're selective about where you invest your time and energy. You engage in deep conversations, pursue meaningful goals, and find fulfillment in things that last longer than the next viral trend. For many, that's a hard pill to swallow. Superficial people are used to being the center of attention, having others entertain their endless need for validation. When you don't play into that, when you don't give them the satisfaction of filling the air with nonsense just to pass time, it stings. They feel unimportant, even irrelevant. They don't know how to interact with someone who doesn't indulge in shallow banter or seek approval from the crowd. Your disinterest in their distractions forces them to confront the fact that their way of living is meaningless. And instead of confronting that, they project their insecurities onto you, calling you cold, distant, or boring. But the truth is, you're just not willing to settle for the easy, the shallow, the temporary. You've set your standards higher than that, and that makes the superficial feel invisible in your presence. And that's a discomfort they can't ignore. At the end of the day, Sigma males embody a simple yet profound truth. Real power doesn't come from fitting in, chasing validation, or playing by society's rules. It comes from the freedom to define your own path, to live life on your terms, and to do so unapologetically. You don't need anyone's approval because you already have your own. You don't crave attention because you know your worth doesn't depend on being seen. You don't measure your success by the same standards the world uses, and because of that, you stand apart, not as a threat, but as a reminder that we're all capable of more, of living without the weight of others' expectations, of thriving without the need to compete, and of finding fulfillment in ourselves, not in the approval of others. While the world screams for likes, followers, and recognition, the Sigma male quietly walks his own path, proving every single day that peace and power are found not in the noise, but in the silence. The truth is, it's not just about rejecting the expectations placed on us, it's about rejecting the idea that we need anything outside of ourselves to be whole. And in a world that thrives on distractions and dependencies, that's something truly extraordinary. So whether they love you or hate you for it, your ability to simply be, without apologies, without compromise, is what sets you apart. And that's the kind of power no one can take away. If you resonated with this, and you're ready to break free from the noise and walk your own path, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this with anyone who needs to hear it. Let's start a conversation about living life on our own terms, because the world could use a lot more people who aren't afraid to stand apart. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Keep moving, keep growing, and never settle for anything less than the best version of you.